The biggest struggle that you will ever have is just getting rid of your will to do the will of God. Everybody in this room has a tendency to be self-willed. But I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. Don't say it's unreasonable. It's your reasonable service. It's talking about being a true worshiper. This is your reasonable service. And don't be conformed to this world, but rather be transformed by the renewing of your minds, that you might, anybody remember the rest of that? Prove the perfect, acceptable, and good will of God, however that order goes. Now, I know people that teach there's 3 levels to the will of God. There's the good will of God, the acceptable will of God, and the perfect will of God. I don't, it's not bingo. I just think the will of God's good, acceptable, and perfect. But don't be conformed, but rather be ye transformed by the renewing of your minds, that you might prove what is that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. It all starts by the renewing of the mind. The word renewing there means better. So God says, I want to take your mind and I'd like to give you a better mind. But the only way that you will ever get my mind is for you to present your body as a living sacrifice. See, when I go to the altar and I put myself on the altar, I have to put my will on the altar, my desires on the altar. And I have to leave it there and allow God to consume out of me my will, my desires, my ways. Ooh. Now, I know some of you think you're God, but you're not. I mean, you think you know how God ought to operate it, but you're not God. Well, I'm going to mess this service up right now. That's the whole problem with us. We get a word from God and we think we got it figured out. I mean, it's filtered through all of your life experiences. It's filtered through your expectations. And if you're not careful, by the time it proceeds out of you, I call it the NIV. The nearly inspired vision or version. Because it's had to filter through all this. It's got to filter through the way you think that God ought to do it. Now, if you don't think this is a dilemma, remember John the Baptist. I mean, he's on the banks of Jordan. Behold the Lamb of God that taketh away the sin of the world. And now he's in prison and he's sending some messengers to Jesus, his cousin, saying, are you he or do we look for another? Well, make up your mind, John. He's either the Lamb of God or he's not the Lamb of God. Now, why did he question it? He questioned it because he thought he knew what it meant when he said, I must decrease, he must increase. He thought that he'd just get bumped down to maybe like an assistant or high-ranking court official, but he didn't expect for him to about to lose his head. And Jesus said, you go tell my cousin that I said the lame walk, the blind see, the dumb talk, and blessed is he that's not offended in me. One translation says, go tell John to let me run my business the way I want to run my business. And all of us at times, whether we like to admit it or not, we've sent messengers to him saying, this is not going the way I thought it was going to go. I perceived it to go this way, to look this way, but it's not going that way. Ooh, prophecy is only in part. When it's a prophecy, you only get a piece of the puzzle. So quit trying to make just a piece of something that's some total of everything. And you just have to put it in the hands of God and say, all right, God, I believe this is a word from you. And you execute it the way you want it executed. And you perform it the way that you want to perform it. I'll just go prove what is the will of God is what I'm going to do. Clap your hands and magnify the Lord. Somebody shout a praise unto God right now.